So it's 8:30. Did I get anything done yesterday? Unfortunately not. Crashed a little after noon. Was up around 6. I'm gonna get something to eat or finish eating. I started eating before I crashed. And I hit a show back from Alberta that I was talking about. It's a late show, 11 o'clock. Well, it's not late really. It's 11 o'clock. So I got a few hours, and I won't be gone long. In fact, I probably won't even have anything to drink, to be honest with you. And I'll be back. What I did manage to accomplish yesterday was that I'm caught up. Almost. I'm going to have some writing to do when I get back for the Whatever Fest show. Again, it was because I was doing lots of ranting and rambling. I think that the solution is that I pull back from the primaries, right? Which are no longer really of any interest to me. So, it's working out. And I should start season 6 when I come home. If all goes according to plan. I hope. Well, that's a new development. Looks like somebody else around here has decided to recycle. Let's applaud that. I've been here almost 3 years. This is the first time I've seen anybody else recycle. It's probably a good thing. Anyways, well, not probably, definitely. I need to get mine out when I get, well, I'll put it out in the morning, because it may still rain. It is 10:30 though, and it's not raining, which is good at least for the walk there. It is chilly out though. 2 sweaters on. Yeah, May in Canada, huh? And it's still going to be cold next week. This is getting a little late in the year. It can be very cold in April, but May, it usually switches near the end of May at least. Anyways. Just gonna get like a hot coffee and some change here, and I won't be, I'm only gonna be gone for like an hour, so this is gonna be a short night. I should come back here in a few days. It's a pharmacy. I didn't know that was there. Pharma Choice, I think, is like a chain. Try it out. So it can't be midnight yet, and I'm actually on the way out. As mentioned, short set. A small but raucous crowd, and a pretty good sight. The song I got was actually a B-side. I managed to pick that up just in my pre-show research. And it's a little different than most of what you'd hear from the record. Apparently they have a new record coming out, and they did play some new material. It was comparably strong to the older stuff, so that's always a positive. Glad I went, but I'm on my way home now. So can we conclude that Sanders would win in the South if there was a rematch tomorrow? The exit polls are throwing a few wrenches into it. The Democrats have higher turnout than the Republicans. It's hard to make sense of in West Virginia, which is an open primary. So voter registration is entirely irrelevant because you can vote for either party or in fact both parties, regardless of how you've registered. Would West Virginia be in play in the general? Well, hardly. Now, it is true that Trump told people to stay home, so you can at least understand the decrease in Republican turnout that way. But then you can't argue that Sanders is winning crossover Trump votes, because Republican turnout is down, so he must be winning voters that are not at all interested in the Republicans. Yet, the exit polls are also suggesting that the voters self-identify as right of center. That is completely inconsistent with the low Republican turnout. It's just a contradiction, flat out. Sanders is apparently doing well with coal miners, which is another contradiction, as his climate policies are far tougher than hers are. I mean, I saw this narrative, but I rejected it as propaganda. The reality is that Sanders will actually eliminate coal jobs, although he'll compensate them for it. Who would actually believe that Clinton is going to do anything other than flop on that for the right price? I mean, I know what she said, but who would possibly believe her? I suppose you could argue that it's just not thought through well, but then why is turnout for Trump so low? If you're voting in favor of coal jobs, you'd have to be remarkably clueless to vote solely for Sanders. Even if you laughably believe what Hillary said, you'd think you'd vote for Trump as well as for Sanders. I do think this is quite ominous for Clinton, as the demographics in West Virginia should overwhelmingly favor her. It's a southern conservative place. She does well in southern conservative places, and race isn't really much of a factor. But I can't rule out the possibility that what you're seeing is an ignorant reaction to a bald-faced lie, rather than a general shift in voting intentions among southern conservatives. But the evidence is mounting that there has been a big shift in the southern support. Let's see how she does in Kentucky before we draw any conclusions. Follow up. Yeah, see, this is what Sanders said. While I strongly believe we need to combat climate change to make our planet habitable for our children and our grandchildren, let me be clear. We cannot abandon communities that have been dependent on coal and other fossil fuels, he said, according to prepared remarks of his speech. In my view, we have got to invest $41 billion rebuilding coal mining communities and making sure that Americans in McDowell County and all over the country receive the job training they need for the clean energy jobs of the future. When somebody puts aside $40 billion for retraining in coal communities, you can be pretty sure they're going to shut down the industry more or less for good. So this idea that they were voting for Sanders as a reaction to Clinton's coal comments is something that you ought to discard. It doesn't actually make any sense. That said, we may work in the possibility that the people of West Virginia voted for exactly what they wanted, which was retraining. It's maybe deceptively simple. I don't know. I'm accusing the voters in West Virginia of not really knowing what Sanders stood for. And at the same time, I have to admit that I don't really know what Clinton's policy on retraining is. She says she wants to shut the coal plants down. What is she going to do to compensate? Could very well be that Sanders' proposal is simply seen as better in terms of how to replace coal. In that case, we could acknowledge that the coal miners were being rational and even thinking about the future. I think there's a reason why nobody is pointing this out. But let's be fair here. Let's provide at least a possibility of some agency and at least acknowledge that it's not entirely insane for coal workers to vote in favor of retraining if they realize that the industry is dying, right? And maybe that answers the question as to why they didn't vote for Trump. But I mean, it's not like I didn't realize that the comments were likely to upset people. It's just I couldn't imagine anybody voting for Sanders as a response. The rational thing to do would be to vote for Trump. Like I say, unless you're resigning yourself to the necessity to actually shut down these coal sites, and you're looking at the two options and you're saying, okay, what Sanders is offering is better for my family than what Clinton is offering, right? But voters don't have perfect information. In fact, in places like West Virginia, they tend to have very low information. despite what I just said, I do actually think that it's more likely and entirely reasonable to suggest that they just simply didn't do their research and just foolishly knee-jerked. That is, they heard something on the news or talk radio and that they didn't like, and they voted against that. That is assuming that these coal workers that voted for Clinton, that voted for Sanders, were interested in keeping their job, right, rather than looking forward. But here's another strange statistic. Apparently, upwards of 40% of voters in the Democratic primary are planning to vote for Trump, which does, cast some doubt there, right? Just a second. I turned the heat down, so I'm gonna adjust my blanket. No use in shivering there, right? So yeah, I'm trying to be fair and less condescending by giving them a little agency, but a substantial proportion of them are claiming they're going to vote for Trump and are in fact conservatives. So this idea that maybe there's some secret liberals there. Well, maybe there are some. It doesn't seem to really come out in the numbers, right? And I think you need to remember this is also a state where you get significant numbers of write-ins. It seems like West Virginians don't really take the process seriously. It's kind of a joke, right? Which maybe it is, right? Maybe they're just able to see things a little bit more clearly. Or maybe not, right? I think the broader takeaway from West Virginia is that it's gone down the rabbit hole. What you really see in the numbers is a level of cynicism that exists only in the realm of the surreal. And so trying to predict results in West Virginia or analyze results that have already happened is sort of pointless. You're assuming an inherent rationality that isn't actually there. I think that this primary election in West Virginia, on the Democratic side at least, is one of those situations where trying to make sense of it is just you'll just be driving yourself mad. There isn't a consistency there, and I think that for my example, I'm not supposed to be tired of what happens, right? I think it's clear that my analysis was actually accurate. In the Democratic primary, voters in the Democratic primary were overwhelmingly conservative and broadly fit the same demographic patterns that voted heavily for Clinton in surrounding states. They just refused to behave rationally and may have actually taken pleasure in it. I've pointed out a few times that I'm not an American. While I certainly know more about American geography than most Americans know about Canadian geography, I do have limits in my understanding. So this is the question I need a real answer to. Just how similar is Kentucky to West Virginia? Are we going to get these same kind of surreal results that defy any kind of real logic? Or is it going to align more with states like Tennessee? It's a big question. Because it really defines whether Sanders is still competitive. Did he win West Virginia by cynicism or by enthusiasm? And what about the states around there? And the other states coming up as well. So can it be projected to states that voted weeks or months ago or not? I had suggested that if Sanders wins in a state like West Virginia that is so heavily tilted towards Clinton, it should cast some doubt, right? But if you look at the numbers a little bit more closely, you realize that the outcome was more the result of a lot of jackasses Um, we're just fucking with the system, right? Is that what we're going to see moving forward? Republicans voting for Sanders for the hell of it? Just to piss people off? Or is there a real movement there? And is that real movement actually changing opinions? Or changing the opinions of people that have already voted? I think that, unfortunately, West Virginia doesn't really help. Although, in the broader, if you zoom out a little, I'm sure it'll become apparent that there's some kind of pattern there. That's the I just got really tired and lost my train of thought all of a sudden. So, I think I'm gonna get a little bit of rest. So, how similar is Kentucky to West Virginia? Well, in fact, a substantial amount of the population of Kentucky is a part of a border city. Cincinnati and Louisville together make up 35% of the population of Kentucky. I think that the following map is a pretty strong argument that Clinton ought to be favored in these cities, and that if she loses those cities, we can talk about shifts in voting intentions. So let's have a good look at this map here. Okay, you see that? Okay, so that little crevice there is where Cincinnati is. I think it's, let me get my focus on, I'm not gonna get my little, yeah, okay. So that little crevice there is where Cincinnati is, and it's about 10% of the population of Kentucky. That little crevice there is where Louisville is, and it's about 25% of the population of Kentucky. Okay? And you'll note that these are cities, so Louisville is here, but it's also here, right? So these blue areas are, the blue is Clinton, those blue areas are part of Louisville, and those blue areas there are part of Cincinnati, right? Meaning that we already know how the people of Louisville and Cincinnati voted previously. Back in March, Cincinnati voted for Clinton, and last week Louisville voted for Clinton. And is there a typo? There is a typo there. How about that? Okay. So, if it happens to be that next week, the people in Cincinnati, especially, vote for Sanders, then we would see that something has changed, right? And in fact, it would really be a smoking gun. Half of Louisville already voted for Clinton, and half of Cincy did too. So we actually have the privilege of a nearly apples to apples comparison. If she wins the Ohio side of Cincinnati in March and loses the Kentucky side in May, well, that strongly suggests that her support is actually caving. But in the end, it was last week, so how can you really expect different results, right? Nothing's happened in the last week. Lexington is another city in Kentucky that houses another 20% of the population, and it's like, let's go back to the map there. So Lexington is like here, right? So you go over that way, and it's like if you extended right angles, they would meet at a right angle. We don't need to talk about geometry here. We can just say, okay, it's right about there. Okay. It's barely outside the population of either city, right? So that's really a tri-state area. That's a very large metropolitan area, right? sorry, a Tri-City area. So why would anybody expect significantly different results there as well? So now you're around half the population of this entire state in those 3 cities, right? Whoever wins that area will win the state. Now, I still haven't seen any polling in Kentucky, but I do think that the graphic of Indiana glued to Ohio that I just showed you makes it clear as day. Okay, that if she doesn't carry that Tri-City area, then she's definitely bleeding support. Even some mixed results are going to point in that direction, right? So if she does win Louisville, but loses Cincinnati, that's going to be real iffy, right? There may be remnant excuses in the rest of the state. I think that the very far eastern part of the state may be a little bit like West Virginia, right? But know that I've also attached a combination of Tennessee and Virginia, and I'm going to show you that. Okay. Again, the lines aren't perfect, so you want to maybe rotate Virginia over a little. But Kentucky's right there, and look at Tennessee. It's just a sea of blue, right? So I've attached that as well, and I think it pretty clearly implies that she should win the southern parts of Kentucky as well, right? I mean, what changes on the border there? There's not even a river or anything, and there isn't. It's just like maybe there's a fence, maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just like walking across the street, and then you're in one state or the other. Like, there's nothing that changes, right? It's about as arbitrary as the Sykes-Picot line. So how's she going to sweep Tennessee like that and then lose Kentucky? Wouldn't be as much of a smoking gun, but it would be a pretty strong argument that she's losing support in her base, right? So if you wake up, if we get the results back from Kentucky, and we see a big gradient with blue on one side of the line and green on the other, it's going to question, how current the results in Tennessee were. Might he do better in Tennessee if they did a different vote tomorrow? Or someday after that, right? It may be that some of the counties in the very east of the state are lost in the same kind of non-reality that exists in West Virginia. Okay, so if there's a part of Kentucky that's like West Virginia, it'll be in the east, but it would be relatively like the population would be a lot less. It would be just a small part of it, right? And so I do think I've convinced myself that we can make some real conclusions from Kentucky, regardless of what Clinton said or how important it is. Okay, so even if it is because of something Clinton said, it would still imply that she's leading support. Okay, losing Louisville at least is going to suggest that the campaign should go into crisis mode. It's also going to suggest that Sanders' argument is strengthening, not weakening. But again, I've said this 3 states in a row now. I said I don't really see any reason she'd lose Indiana. I said I don't really see any reason that she'd lose West Virginia. And I really still don't see any reason that she'd lose Kentucky. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't look like the map of Tennessee. Okay? Again, all of the evidence that I've seen points in the direction that she should win by a substantial margin in Kentucky. But again, all of the evidence suggested she should win by substantial margins in Indiana and West Virginia. The polling in Indiana even suggested that she was going to win. The polling in West Virginia there wasn't really any good polling. And I haven't seen any polling at all in Kentucky. Okay? So we don't have any direct evidence. But at this point, I see no reason to argue that Sanders should have any chance at all in Kentucky. She should win the state handily. But let's take a look at this map again here. This is a smaller version of the Ohio-Indiana map. So there's Ohio, there's Indiana. I know Americans aren't good at geography. Um, and you'll notice something. You see where that little white sliver is? Um, Ohio should be rotated a little so that they actually touch. But you'll note that it's all blue on the Ohio side and all green on the Indiana side. The primaries were similar. Really, the only difference is that Ohio voted in March and Indiana voted in May. If Ohio were to vote tomorrow, would it still be that blue? Or would all of those places, look, it's a clear split. And what changes on that line? Nothing changes there. The only thing that's changed is time, right? Where the vote is located in time. I think that's compelling in itself. Okay, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that's not evidence of a shift in voting intentions. And hence, if he does manage to win in Kentucky, or win pockets of Kentucky that are close to the Ohio and Indiana borders, or Tennessee border for that matter, okay, then it's time to start talking about the Clinton campaign being in free fall, right? Now these are states that she'll probably lose anyways, or at least that she would probably expect to lose under any normal circumstance. Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, these are red states, right? But there are also states, they're not that far from Arkansas, and Trump is, of course, widely seen as toxic. It's maybe not in her electoral math, but it should still be taken seriously that she's losing support there, because if she is, it's going to transfer elsewhere. Right? So yeah, is Kentucky similar to West Virginia? I don't think so, or not broadly speaking, probably not. Most of the population in Kentucky is located in areas that are going to be more comparable to Ohio, Indiana, or Tennessee. And all the evidence points towards Clinton winning. If she doesn't, it's going to be a crisis. Most people probably won't pick up on it, but you'll notice that my analysis has consistently been very different. See, normally you don't swing back, right? You wouldn't swing from Clinton to Sanders and then back to Clinton again. So if Sanders is swinging, it might be long term, right? Let's see what happens before we jump to any conclusions. But I'm telling you that I don't care what the racist models say. She should be favored to win in Kentucky. It's not an anomaly like West Virginia is. It looks like a normal state, and if she loses it, then it's bad news for her. So what's my Hillary said this morning? I wouldn't raise it being the capital gains investment tax, above 20% if I raised it at all. Clinton's not so keen on wealth redistribution. She's more into the, hard work gets you where you need to be type category. Choose wisely. Pick what you want, You might agree with her. If you do, so be it. But if you don't, please don't vote for her. Sun's coming up, which means I actually need to get my recycle out before I forget. So I'll do that, and then I'll come back and talk to you afterwards. And it actually looks like it may even clear up a little bit early too. Good. All good things happening. So it's 7 o'clock. What happened all night? Well, I guess I was thinking about the primary until about 3:30. So there'll be there will be some ranting preceding this. Then I spent a few more hours. I don't even want to say that I was actually. I mean, I was doing some kind of editing, but it was like I was like looking for things and listening to things, and what I've been doing recently as I've been editing is actually listening to bands that I might want to go see. So I've actually scratched a few off the list. That's good because it means that I'll have more cash to go to see some of the other ones. I kind of knew that starting the month that there's going to be a lot of ambiguity with stuff like this, right? Some stuff that kind of sounds good at first, but then you kind of listen to it and realize, on second thought, this isn't so good. Which is why I listen to things before I go. I do my research. I am the local show geek. I will wear that hat, that chapeau. So I scratched a few things off. I think at this point I'm probably not going to anything until the 19th, which is Chelsea Wolves, so that gives me some time. But while I was doing that, I was also, I was doing editing related things. No wait, that's right. I watched the vlog from the 8th. Yeah, and that took like an hour, right? So that's what took that's what took all that time. And I've decided that I'm still waiting to write the show review for Whatever Fest because there's actually somebody that's uploading video, and I think that once he's done uploading all the video, I can go through and remember, okay, I went here, then I went here, then I went here, and there's lots of bands. I didn't really know a lot of the names of them and everything, so if I can get that as an aid, it'll help me get that through. So there's that. But besides that, I'm actually caught up, which is good, which means that I'm now actually going to do the thing that I want to do, which is I have the vlog from yesterday, the 8th. Sorry, no, it'd be the. This is gonna be the 9th because this is gonna be 10:11 today, because that was up late. So I have that vlog rendering. I'm gonna make something to eat. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna watch it, right? And then I'm gonna go about my day. That's what I want the process to be, And if they're shorter vlogs, if they're 20-minute vlogs, that takes my time down as opposed to these extra long vlogs. If I'm moving into season 6, because season 5 was so much about the Democratic primary, I'm feeling the need to put a real kind of a harsh stop down. I'm going to keep doing the Hillary thing, but I mean, like, even when he wins West Virginia, I don't really. I want him to run as an independent, obviously. I think a lot of people do. But I think it's also as clear as day that that's going to take some angling, and it's probably not likely. He thinks he can win, and there's some chance. If he doesn't, he's going to endorse her, right? And then we're back to the two-headed state again, Meanwhile, Trump is, reminding people that up until, last week he was a Democrat, right? So, anyways, it's gonna be, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, two-headed monster, same thing, right? There's no hope for this system. Anyways, so what am I doing today then? I'm gonna get something to eat. I'm gonna do the editing, right? But I mean, this is going to. If I can cut that down, I think that will really actually save a lot of time, because I'm spending a lot of time reading it, right? You'll notice that I'll go off on these 20-minute rants, right? And then I've got to edit it. I've got to, that's the real time-consuming part of this. I need to cut that out, right? If I cut that out, I think I'll be fine. So it's a beautiful day out today, and it's actually going to warm up quite a bit. We're looking at a 20-degree day, first time in a long time. Well, actually, it's not. There was one, I think, there was one on Saturday, right? But what's different about today is it looks like we're going to get some humidity, right? So hopefully I can get the windows open for a few hours, flush some air in, so that I'm, able to keep the heat at a decent level without having to turn the heat on all the time. It's probably going to be short-lived. We'll get a nice day tomorrow, but it looks like it's going to be cold over the weekend, so it's like, fuck. But at the same time, I think it's really necessary that that gets done. So that's part of the day. The other thing is, I think that because it's such a nice day, I should take a walk down to the card store, and we can have a talk about these cards. He would probably say, save your money, don't go to the show, right? But I'm gonna blow my money and go to the show. Sorry, man. That's what I'm doing. So, yeah, that's what that's for. And I'm gonna use it for what it's for, right? So that's the plan for the day. And first off, I'm starting the day, right? So I was up late on the 10th, but I'm starting the 11th, and this is the start of the day, and it's the got to be the absolute flip over, right? I'm caught up on the editing. I'm gonna deal with that, but when I come back, it's into the other room and time to get to work, right? And like I said, I don't think I'm going anywhere for a good week. So I should get something done. Smile. Life's good. No. Don't be a naughty Eskimo. No. Watch out where the huskies go. Don't you eat that yellow snow. Watch out where the huskies go. Don't you eat that yellow snow. Dun, 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 dun. Fur trap. Strictly commercial. Strictly commercial.